Welcome to Littleton Common. I'm Bob Spinozzi.
And I'm Barbara McRae. You know, the chill is coming, Bob. It has been a wonderful year, weather-wise, though. And, you know, it has been kind of nice not having to wear a coat until now. But I like the fall because I get a chance to celebrate my birthday and our 56th anniversary.
I love the foliage is my favorite time of the year. And one of my least favorite times of the year is when we have to move the clock back. And we have to do that the first Sunday of this month. And also November is the last month of the hurricane season. And it's usually, not all the time, but usually the first month that we're going to get out here at least measurable snowfall.
Oh,
And
maybe.
Right, not all the time. But all the time we have Thanksgiving.
Yes.
That's a given.
Yes, that makes it fun too. So, you know, so what? It's New England. It changes all of the time.
Barbara, what happened? Barbara?
Whoa, wait, what was that? Where am I? I don't know how I got here, but it kind of looks like Italy, maybe? Is that Vesuvius out there?
Yes, but how did you get there?
How did I get here? I know I'm in Italy because look at this scenery. It's really beautiful. And the weather is great. So, talk about news on the go. I'll try to do my part of the show from here.
Okay, let's do it.
Italy makes you think of fashion, and so do we at our friend's thrift shop. Pull your winter wardrobe together by joining us on Sunday, November 3rd at 1:30 p.m. in the multi-purpose room, Shattuck Street. These are clothes from the Friends Thrift Shop. And you know, these shows highlight some of the lovely clothes that are donated to our thrift, and money raised from sales goes to the Friends of the Littleton Council on Aging funds for senior programs. The show will be held in the multi-purpose room, as I said, and tea and dessert will be served. No reservations are needed. Get ready for the holidays with the craft classes. On Wednesday, November 13th at 1 o'clock, you'll meet in the Shattuck Street multi-purpose room, where else, to create a candle holder to decorate for your Thanksgiving table, or if you'd like, a Christmas table. There will be many supplies and ideas to help you with your creations. More crafts on December 4th, so you can return for Live Greens workshop and make an arrangement for the Christmas table or door. Get ready, the holidays are here. At 12 noon on November 15th, join River Court residents for an educational lunch. Later, for dessert, you'll return to the Council on Aging for a class on cupcake decorating. Space is limited, so sign up now for all the classes I have mentioned by calling 978-540-2470. The Littleton Lyceum has some great programs coming in November, January, and March. On Friday, November 15th, Marcia and Mark Wilson's program, Eyes on Owls, will give us a chance to learn about the New England owls, and 12 have been recorded. A selection of wild owls will be on stage, and that's a must-see. January 10th, it's the Tanglewood Marionettes with Cinderella. And March 6th, it's Ball in the House. You can get your tickets at the door or online at www.littletonlyceum.org. All programs are at the high school Performing Arts Center. Evan Theophilakis has some great programs to tell you about. Evan Thea?
Thank you. November is a wonderful time to experience music at Indian Hill. And here are just some of the highlights of the many events we have for you this month. The fabulous Indian Hill Big Band starts things off with 2 nights of swinging big band hits from Artie Shaw to Tommy Dorsey and everyone in between for your listening and dancing pleasure on Friday, November 1st, and a second concert on Saturday, November 2nd, both at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $15 for that, and we suggest getting yours now before it sells out. So go online at indianhillmusic.org or call us at 978-486-9524. Our daytime Discovery Lecture Series features faculty pianist Eric Kamen talking about the different musical styles of Haydn and Mozart, and that's going to be on Tuesday, November 5th at noon. Admission is just $10 for that, and you can bring your lunch. The free box lunch concert series continues on Thursday, November 14th, with 2 shows, one at 11 and one at 1:30 p.m. And this time we have the Pamela Hines Trio doing a tribute to the music of Vince Guaraldi. And call 978-486-9524 to reserve your table. We've also got 2 great chamber music concerts this month. Renowned violinist Irina Marashanu is going to play music from around the world on Saturday, November 16th, 8 o'clock p.m. over at the Kaleidoscope Gallery in Groton. And back over at Indian Hill, we've got Duo Nouveau with cellist Young Suk Lee and pianist Eugene Lee, and they will be playing music of Beethoven and Busoni, Bartok, and Britten. And again, that's at Indian Hill on Sunday, November 24th at 3 o'clock p.m. So find out more about these and other Indian Hill events, as well as our music school, where we've got programs for all ages. So check it out, indianhillmusic.org, and we hope to see you soon.
In Veterans News, the Edward Romilly Veterans Corner rededication ceremony will be held on Sunday, November 10th at 1 p.m. with the unveiling of the new Veterans Monument. And that, of course, is on the Common. Then on Monday, Veterans Day ceremony will take place also beginning at 11 a.m. In other Veterans News, on Wednesday, November 27th, the Littleton Police and Fire Departments will prepare breakfast for veterans of all ages. Now, that will take place at the Senior Diner at Town Hall from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. So put your feed bag on. Also a reminder, John Borowski is our Veterans Agent, and he's available every Monday and Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to noon, and he can help with any issue that veterans might have.
The Friends of the COA will honor our veterans by hosting the annual Veterans Luncheon on November 6th at the Shattuck Street Multi-Purpose Room. Veterans and spouses are free. Guests are $5 and non-residents will pay $7. Join us at noon, and we look forward to seeing you there. Put December 11th on your calendar so you won't miss the Christmas luncheon hosted by the Friends of the Council on Aging. Look for our posters and information coming soon.
Living expenses are a struggle for many people, and the Littleton Rental Assistance Program might be able to help you. If you're income eligible and live in a qualified housing area of Littleton, there may be help. You can call 978-540-2470 or visit the website www.littletonmass.org/elder and human services. The movie of the month is Late Night, starring Emma Thompson and Mindy Kaling. Released earlier this year, Late Night is a comedy where a late-night talk show host's world is turned upside down when she hires her first and only female writer. This decision brings on funny consequences because the 2 women have some serious cultural differences. The movie will be shown on Thursday, November 21st in room 230, and if you'd like to see it, please sign up in the COA office or call 978-540-2470, and a $2 donation is requested.
A new bridge group is forming at the Council on Aging on Fridays. At 9:30 p.m. you can go into room 230 and learn bridge. This is a friendly bridge group welcoming beginners, and there will be someone to teach you the rules. But call the Council on Aging to sign up. Seems to be really busy around here with building certain things for the hotel. So we'll just have to bear with us. December 3rd, Sail Away with Pastels. Paint with artist Gregory Mychek, who will teach you to paint something in your own style. Beginners and experienced painters are welcome. Classes are 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and the cost is $5. For more information and to reserve your seat by calling the Council on Aging office, the usual number. Loving Stitches will show their wares at the Town Holiday Bazaar on December 7th. Don't miss this annual event. There will be many non-profit organizations with items to sell. Make sure you stop by the Loving Stitches table and you will like what you see.
Bill Vales will have 3 internet and computer classes during the month of November. First class is November 7th and will be about sharing information on the web, Dropbox, Google Drive, for instance. Then on the 14th, the subject will be social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+. Then on November 21st, Bill will go into digital photography part 1. These classes are all held on Thursdays in room 230 from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m., and they could extend a little bit longer.
Oh, I wonder if I'll have to leave here and go back to Littleton.
Whoa, I'm back. Boy, that was a surprise.
Back from where?
But,
Please tell me.
well, I don't know. That was a trip, I'll tell you. But at least I'm still in one piece, I think.
Oh my goodness. Huh.
I wonder if it's possible to travel like that all the time.
Well, I'm glad you're back, safe and sound. We're going to safely travel with our audience on a trip to Slovakia this month, but not the way you did it. Tony Jesensky was in Slovakia with his family recently. He's going to share his experience, so stay with us for that. Tony, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Slovakia.
Slovakia.
Now, we're going to show a map. Slovakia, it's Central Europe,
Right.
bordered by Poland, the Ukraine, Hungary, Austria, and the Czech Republic.
Right.
Start telling us about Slovakia itself.
Okay, well, I think it's easier to start with Czechoslovakia. Up to 50 years ago, they were combined.
Okay.
And in 1969, we had the Velvet Revolution, they called it, in which they split. But they didn't become Slovakia, and the Czech Republic didn't become independent until 1989. So it took them about 20 years to complete this Velvet Divorce or Velvet Revolution. And the Czechs went their way, and the Slovaks went their way. So Slovakia has been in Central Europe, and it's been a crossroads. There were many, every invader that came from the east or the west went through there. So the Mongols came, and the Tatars came, and everybody came through. And there's many, many castles in Slovakia at passes. So they were supposed to stop the invaders. Of course, they didn't.
And we're going to talk about your trip in just a couple of minutes. But let's talk a little bit more about the country itself. The capital is, see if I get this right, Bratislava? Bratislava. That's the, how did you get there?
Well, we got
From here?
From here, we flew to Paris, and from Paris to Vienna. And from Vienna, we took a train into Bratislava. And we...
You spent some time there?
Yes. And in Bratislava, we spent the first 2 days looking at the Bratislava Castle and the Franciscan churches. And it's still, like I went to Mass on a Sunday, and it was in Hungarian. And the country is very secular. The communists have done a good job of tamping them down, and it's slowly but surely coming back. You know, it's losing its secularism, and it's becoming more, different religions. You've got Lutherans and the Greek Catholics, or not the Greek Catholics, but the Orthodox and the regular Catholics. So it's coming back, and they've got new churches because the communists raised them all. I mean, they just, or they use them for other things, you know, for apartments or offices is what they use them for. But now it is a democratic republic, and it's coming around. It's a slow but sure process.
It's coming around, and there's
Yeah.
some vibrancy there.
Yeah.
And tell us about some of the more popular foods
No.
that they had, not only that they have there, but that you like.
Well, the foods that I like, of course, are the ethnic foods. The golumki, they've got a sausage kielbasa, which is the same as it is in Polish, but it's probably the same sausage. And then halushki, which are my all-time favorites, so like gnocchi, which they pan fry, and they pan fried in many different ways. I had it 8 times while I was over there, almost every other day, some days 2 or 3 days in a row. But I wanted to see what the different regions, how they prepared it. So I would try it in the restaurants. So I had, they usually pan fry it with sauerkraut and mushrooms, and they put fennel on, and whatever, they dress it up pretty good. And then they make, pierogies are still there. The pierogies is still an all-time favorite. But when you go into Bratislava, those are bigger towns, you have trouble finding ethnic foods. The cosmopolitan in Bratislava and Košice, which is on the other side, the second largest city in Slovakia, you have trouble finding ethnic foods. But when you get into the smaller towns, they have still they like their own food. They like their their ethnic foods. So
now your family is from the Slovakia.
You're right. They're from a little town right outside of Košice.
Okay, so let's talk about your trip.
Okay.
You made a lot of different stops.
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
16 days.
Okay.
16 days.
And how many times have you gone there?
Yeah, this is my second time. I went, but I took my mom and dad back. Now, my dad's family immigrated to the United States in late 30s, 37, 38, and they all came. I mean, it was a mess. And then my dad went back and married my mother in 38, and so they came over to the States. He brought it to the States. So her family was still there. And I had a genealogist in Pittsburgh, a Slovak guy, go through and see if he could find any of my mother's relatives over in Košice, the town that they were from. And I only had 14 addresses of my mother's relatives or friends that when she passed away, they had sent condolences. So I had those names and addresses. And he researched them all, and he couldn't find any of them. He sent 14 letters, and 13 came back as undeliverable. Well, when we got over there, the local person who was our guide was very, very resourceful, and he went through the same thing, and he couldn't find anybody, anybody that was a relative of my mother's over there, because the names had probably been changed. But she only had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, so there were only 5 of them. But I don't know. During I know my sister, my aunt died, so one died, and then my uncle was a Slovak Jesuit. He was a priest, and he was persecuted like heck. So he came over to the States in the late 60s. As a matter of fact, when we went over there, my mother paid for him to be smuggled out of Slovakia into Austria, and then over to the States. From the States, he went to Canada because it was a big Slovak Jesuit monastery up in Galt, Ontario, Canada. But he went back about 12 years ago, and we corresponded, and he died in 2011 at ripe old age of 93. But he was a celebrity in the town. So when we went there, when we went to this little town, people remembered him, but they said there were no other, no other survivors of the family there. Since he was a priest, he didn't have any progeny. So he was pretty good. He was a celebrity.
It's amazing that they remember.
Yeah. He was only 10 years ago or whatever, but he had when he had his 60th anniversary as a priest, he went back and he celebrated the Mass in the church that my mom and dad were married in. And it was front page news in the local newspaper. So we were able, the guide that we had was very resourceful. He found the spread. And he also found and I didn't know that they had done that, is when we were over there, they had visitors from America. But it was only my mom and dad. I don't know, for some reason my picture wasn't there, but there was a picture of them all together, in there. And it was only one of my mother's sisters left there at the time. So I don't know.
Well, let's talk about your trip. I know before we came on the air, you were telling me about the, well, for one thing, the hot springs and the spas.
Oh, yeah.
And then the castle.
Right, the castles, and of course the one of the highlights was the log raft. They had rafts made of logs that when they used to have had the loggers cut the timber down, they would float it down the river, and they would all float. So what they do now is that, as a tourist thing, is they make these log boats, and it's they look like real logs, but they're not. They're like, they fit into each other. There's a little slot. You put one on top of the other. So they float down for about 2 hours. You float down the river. You get off. What they do is disassemble them, put them on trucks, and take them back up to the little thing there. But, there's little castles and the Virgin of the mountain and those kind of things there. So it was a very pleasant trip. And the grandsons of mine had a chance to pull. They pull these down. How you see those guys with those sticks when they're bringing them down the river, when they do it in New Hampshire or whatever. Well, they have the same things there. So the kids were able to pull.
Tony, you were there for 16 days. Did you both take a train and did you rent a car, or? We
rented a car. I mean, we took the train and we had a guide for 14 of the days. So when we took the train to Bratislava, we stayed at a hotel, and the next morning he picked us up, and he was the driver for everywhere we went.
Okay.
He was a guide. For what he did, I thought it was very inexpensive. I mean, he very knowledgeable, spoke a couple languages. In his mid-30s, had lived in Australia for 10 years, and as a kid and all that kind of thing. So, but very, very knowledgeable. Gave us the historical background and the historical facts of every place we went. And there are 6 UNESCO sites in Slovakia, and we stopped at all 6. UNESCO, well, United Nations heritage sites. So we went there. But initially, when we left from Bratislava, we went to Banská Štiavnica, which is it's a mining town. It's where the Habsburgs and the others there were gold mines, silver mines, copper mines, and we were able to go down and see what was what they did and everything. And they have a historical museum, and it was really, really, very interesting. And then from there we went on to Banská Štiavnica, and then we had a wooden church was there. The wooden church. The explanation behind it is that depending on who was in charge of the area, if you were Protestant, you weren't allowed to have Catholic churches unless you met these specific conditions. You could build it out of wood, use no metal, no nothing. And a couple of these churches have survived. And we went. I saw 2 of them, and 2 of them were the UNESCO sites. So then after that, we went on to Lavoka, which is right here, and the world famous Spiš Castle. And the Spiš Castle, it's way up there. It's on a Dolomite hill, it's called, and it's way up there on the hill. And we're close as you can get to it. The parking lot is about an hour away. We walked there, and then once you get to the castle, then you got to go up the castle, and it's all cobblestones, beaten earth. None of it's paved. There are no escalators, no nothing. It was no moving sidewalks or anything. And I tell you, when I went back to the hotel, I lay down, and I was gone until the next morning. But after that, we went to Košice, which was where my parents were from, which is over here. And they were in a little town right outside. And I had my mother's birth certificate. So when she became naturalized, she needed a birth certificate, so she got it from the colonies. But it told exactly where she was born and her parents' name and her mother's maiden name. And we were able to find a town that was on the birth certificate, which was right outside Košice. So we went there, and we saw the church that my parents were married in. And then there was a graveyard there. And when we were talking to the priest that was there, he said, he says, I remember that. He says, no. I think your grandmother and grandfather's graves and your family's grave, your mother's family's graves are over here. So we went over there, and they take care of their graves. Like my grandmother died in '63, I believe, and her grave and my grandfather had died before that, and their graves were still maintained.
Just hearing about all that must have been so emotional for you.
Yeah. And I felt, I guess, almost like I was at home, like because I could understand the language. Yeah. I couldn't speak it as much as I would like to, but I was listening to tapes, before I left, just to get my, Tony Jesensky and all that guy, to get it out of the way. But we found my parent, and the name of my grandfather and my grandmother on my mother's birth certificate was exactly the same as it was on the tombstone. The maiden name of my grandmother was there, and the whole bit. I wish we would have found, a cousin or something like that. I didn't find anybody that was there, but I did find such significant places like the church my parents were married in and my grandparents' graves. And there was other family members who were there too. So it was something. It was really something. And then from there we went on to the Tatras, which are the mountains, the high mountains. They go right along the border here. Part of them are in Poland, part of them are in Slovakia. But we stayed there, and we went up to cable cars, and the highest peak is in Slovakia. The second highest peak is right across the border in Poland. They're right on the way. But they had dancers and musicians and that kind of thing come to the hotel that we were staying at, and they had a presentation. And was like being drawn back in time. My daughter says, why are you crying? And I said, I don't know. I said, it just seems so,
well, those festivals are their folklore.
Yeah. But it's all in the small towns. Like we were in Košice, you wouldn't know you were in Slovakia. No, you go 10 minutes out of the town and you're in, because it is basically a third world country. It's maybe not third world, but not exactly. Like the big towns are really, really secular, and they have they're modern and everything. But these other towns, we stayed at places here in these little towns that were almost like on the Appalachian Trail, the house or the cabins that you stay at, and it was but the food was always great. We had part of the tour was they made the reservations at all the hotels, which I'm sure they got receipts or something for, but they had buffet breakfast at all of them, and like you said, there were so many different sausages and different breakfasts. They've bear claws almost. A type of.
We have to stop talking about this. Yeah. I'm getting really hungry.
Yeah, but the food was really good. We were on our own for lunch and dinner, and our guide would suggest places. That you can go down here. My family, those guys were vegetarians. So they were always looking for some vegetarian stuff. And of course the local foods are mostly vegetarian, other than the sausages, which I never saw steak on any of the menus. I never saw hamburgers on any of the menus. You saw very little meat other than the sausages that were there.
Can you see yourself going back in the next couple of years? Or?
It's funny you should mention that. I was just talking to my sister. And my daughter would put everything on Facebook, as we were making the trip, and my sister had access to it. And she said, boy, I'd like to see this, I'd like to see that. So we're talking now about going back within the next year or so, and go for a week to 10 days, and take my sister. And it was inexpensive. I mean, you know, we stayed at some of the, you know, I'm not going to say third-class hotels, but we stayed at some places that weren't really nice, but other places we stayed that were really nice, you know. And it was, if you want to go visit an isolated village, which some of these places are, that's the reason they survived, you know, as Chineki and all those kind of little places. And but you can't get there, you know. The towns are still small. They haven't developed their tourist industry at all. Bratislava there's nothing in Bratislava. It's just a regular town. Like Vienna and Budapest, when you go there, they have the tourists, the hop-on, hop-off buses. And if the bus stops at your hotel, you get on, you go to a site, you know, a tourist attraction, and you visit, and then you get back on the next bus that comes through, and you go to the next one. So Budapest and Vienna have it. Bratislava doesn't.
Well, look, if you go back, the next time you go back, we'll do this again.
Okay, good.
We got to get back to Barbara right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We hope everyone has a special and a healthy Thanksgiving Day. And don't forget to hug a senior.